We're back on Loose on the Lead on this beautiful Sunday morning, and Saratoga always exciting and always vivacious, but particularly so these next few days and yesterday as Gai Waterhouse, as legendary a trainer as there is anywhere in the world, male or female, I'll add too, as well. Gai Waterhouse joins us. Welcome. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Seth, thank you for having me here.
Thrilled to have you here. And that first question we have to put out of the box, obviously, coming up from Australia, you said during the break your first visit to Saratoga. What are your impressions?
Blown away. I'm here with my husband and a group of friends. There's quite an entourage of us, and we're absolutely blown away. The hospitality, and firstly, the number of people at the races. The openness, you know, you go to the track this morning and there are tours being taken around, and I love the little buggy cars that get you from A to B, and we've been into that many leading trainers' yards, and they're just so open to have you there. It's delightful.
We absolutely are happy to have you here. And talk a little bit about, are there comparable tracks over in Australia, something that matches up to Saratoga in the atmosphere here?
The atmosphere would be Melbourne in the spring carnival. You've all heard, I'm sure, of the Melbourne Cup. That lead up, which goes over about 5 weeks, which is similar, but that's over 4 tracks. So it culminates with a big poof, and the first Tuesday in November, the Cup Day. And there's 4 days at Flemington, and there's 1 day at Moonee Valley, a small track like Happy Valley in Hong Kong. You've got Caulfield, so you know, Sandown. It's a nice mixture of tracks, but nothing where they're literally a month in one place.
Absolutely.
The venues you talk about and our familiarity because of the international simulcast circumstances, more and more, in fact, right here on Capital OTB, people watch what is designated as Australia A, Australia B, Australia C, and you know, I think the Melbourne Cup certainly is the race that most North American audiences and race goers are obviously aware of. And you talk about the lead up and the Caulfield Cup and the very frequent tie-ins, the Cox Plate, and there's that series of races, Gai, that we sometimes see Australian runners, you know, running 3 times in a fortnight. I mean, talk a little bit about the preparation, about the differences in terms of, you know, running that intensive a schedule, especially a 2-mile feature.
I think the big difference is that there's very little use of Lasix in Australia. So if you go back to 20 years ago in America, you look at the horses that used to back up. Now that's stopped, and I think it's because of the use of Lasix. I don't think you can back the horses up. So in Australia, because that's not used, you get the horses fit and you run them. I mean, you're running for big money, so you know, the horses are primed all year long to run there, and we do back them up. It's becoming not as popular as it used to be, but my husband, who's a bookmaker, always says he likes the backup horse, and why wouldn't you? Because it's the trainer's way of saying to the public, this horse is sound and healthy.
And talk a little bit about, you know, the Melbourne Cup, 2 miles. Obviously, stayers, very important down there in Australia, and you've kind of alluded to it. It's changed here in America. We're a little more oriented towards speed, and some of our longer classic distance races have, in fact, condensed their distances over the past 20 or 30 years. And as I look at the news from Australia, it seems like maybe you're tilting in that direction too, maybe getting a little more enamored with speed. Is that so?
Very much so, Steph. We have got right back. Everything's cut back. Even the Derby used to be, it was 2,400. Some of them were 2,200. Madness. You know, they're wanting the stayer. They're even standing the stayer at stud, yet all they do is program these, what I call sprinter hybrid, you know, middle distance races. And it's almost identical Australia, America, Australia.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. As I say, I watched the news over the past couple of years. But want to go back, we've talked about the Melbourne Cup, obviously. Everybody knows, if you read anything about Australian racing, referred to as the race that stops the nation. We'll go back, and we have some video, Gai, back on 2013. Fiorente wins. You pick up a Melbourne Cup, and this was a really nice field. Even over here, these names are familiar. Red Cadeau, a world traveler, he runs second in here. Brown Panther was in this race. Dunedin was in this race. Here in America, that's clearly not the Melbourne Cup.
No,
but we'll try to. There we go.
That's the Melbourne Cup.
Here in America, trainers like to clearly put the Kentucky Derby on their resume. I assume in Australia you won a Melbourne Cup and you did it in 2013. Talk a little bit about it.
So it was interesting. I'd run placings in this race, and I'd been training 20 years, and it was one race that had eluded me. And on the morning of the Cup, I was short price favourite, Ferrante was, and I was so nervous, and I'm not a person who gets nervous on race day. I might get butterflies, but I'm very much a woman with a mission, and that's all the owners. And of course, as you can see, they're all dressed up. It's the race that stops a nation, and why it does is it's the highest prize money. It's been so well publicised by the VRC, the Victorian Racing Club, and they take the cup every year around through America and Asia and Europe, taking the cup so people become aware of it. You know, to think we're sitting here now and talking about that one race, yet we don't have any real staying races in Australia.
That is amazing, and there's also, of course, been the interest in American breeding in some of the Australian bloodstock, Lonhro and Americain, coming as stallions, and that I thought was an interesting development over the last couple of years.
Great development. I love this co-pollination. I've been most successful with an American horse, More Than Ready, its progeny. And of course, Sebring now stands at Wooden Stud in New South Wales, and he won the Golden Slipper and was champion Australasian 2-year-old. And of course, More Joyous, a wonderful mare. So I love More Than Ready. We've got a very smart colt shaping up for the Breeders' Plate. Our two first races in Australia are run on the first weekend in October. And then they really dictate what will win the Golden Slipper. Our next most important race in Australia, I believe, the stallion-making race, is the Golden Slipper run at Easter time.
You talk about a race like the Golden Slipper, and Seth brought up speed. The Australasian environment in general, Hong Kong, of course, which has a unique environment. A lot of people here, talk about the structure of racing in North America and say, oh, it should be more like Hong Kong. Well, that's pretty fanciful considering the circumstances in Hong Kong. But for all of the expectation that the international marketplace and the international racing community is one that's concentrated on route racing, it seems that the Australasian sprint distances and the sprinters are the ones that are most celebrated. I mean, Singapore and Hong Kong, while there are races at a mile and beyond, it's always the Australian sprinters, Takeover Target, and some of the ones like that seem to be most celebrated.
Well, they are. We are a speed nation like America, and we're a nation of youth. It's all about vitality, and it epitomizes the speed and the vitality in Australia. I've won 6 Golden Slippers, and 4 of them by males, and they all stand and one was a gelding, the rest were colts, and they're all stallions. It is the stallion-making race of Australia. Simple as that.
Interesting. And you mentioned something about vitality, and for many years, the last, let's say 10, 15 years in America, in terms of marketing concepts for the sport, there had been and has been a ongoing comparison, or at least hope, that the way in which younger people utilize the racetrack in Australia as a social setting for basically nightclubs. They'll come to the races sometimes later in the card, and then stay and dine and dance, and that it's very much
and drink.
I let you say that. The talk about that portion of the vitality of Australians' racing environment, and how the American marketing community, when it comes to racing, can benefit.
Well, if they market very well in Australia, when you go to Melbourne for the Cup, from the moment you get off the plane, it's basically you all the way along a flag, so you're aware that you're arriving in a city of an event. And every tabloid, every paper, there's not one page or two, there's maybe 10 or 12 pages on racing. You turn on the radio, you hear da-da-da-da-da down the radio about the horses. You turn on the television, it's us sitting up here chatting away. That's what it's so in your face, you can't escape it. But what I see the difference, and what the lovely difference here, and maybe it's Saratoga, I don't know, this is very much about fans, about people coming to something that they've been nurtured from. Today at the track, these groups of people, there were as many children as there were adults, and even older people. And that's what I like. We don't have fans in Australia. That has died. We have people who come to an event and get dressed up in little skinny outfits and heels this high, and they're walking off the track barefoot because they're so sore. You know what I mean? And that they don't come because they want to follow the betting or the form or the horses. They come because it's a media event, or it's an event to be at. Yeah.
Going off that, a little bit of an offshoot, you seem to have embraced the internet over the past few years and appealing to fans that way. I know you have your own website and you blog and Gay TV. And talk a little bit about using the internet to appeal to fans.
I think it's important. Look, people own racehorses most of the time for pleasure. You know, it's only a few people that own them because it's their business or they want to make money out of them. And really, you may as well pour it into a boat. You know, it's a luck game. You know, were you born under the right star and you happen to get a good horse, or, you know, an American Pharaoh. I mean, it's luck plays a big part. And I'm a great believer in being in the right place at the right spot. I feel I'm in the right place at the right spot being with you guys.
Talk a little bit also, obviously we saw the Melbourne Cup win, but your resume is just phenomenal down in Australia, legendary really worldwide with what you've done down there. Talk a little bit about how you got into the game and got to this point.
It was so funny. Probably obvious, like most of the trainers, I came through my family. My father was Australasian champion trainer, not for 5 or 10 years, for 33 consecutive
Tommy
years.
Smith.
It's Tommy Smith, exactly. TJ Smith, as he was known in Australia and in America. And one of the big farms owners in America came to him and said, Tommy, we want to take you to America because, you know, you're the best. And he said, look, I like being the big fish in the small pond. And he said, I'm going to stay here. It was tempting, and it was a very big money they had offered him, but he said, no, I'd sooner be back in Australia. But so I thought this year was my year to sort of come over and see what the water was like over here and meet and greet and just get a feel of it, because I really feel the two countries have got so much in common.
When are we going to see some Gai Waterhouse horses over here?
I hope so.
That'd be good. Are you going to head over to the sale on Monday, Tuesday?
Yeah, we've already had a tiny little peep, and we're going back again today.
Hope to bring some home?
You never know.
Have to ask too, Gai, because we have some prominent Australian trainers that have made their homes in America. You think about Ian and Tracy Wilkes, who are just absolute delights, and Brian Lynch, who from Wagga Wagga. The town's so nice they named it twice, as Brian will say, and of course he and his brother brought over the Sprinter Power Alert,
top horse,
who was a bleeder, and they had to get him out of Australia. He's been successful here, but do you watch some of the lads and lasses head out for greener pastures or for opportunities abroad? Some that maybe have worked for you.
They have. I've just had. Todd Plether's young lady come out to me, and she was lovely, Carly. She was there for some time, and she was really a delight. And he asked me yesterday, he said, oh, she's back here, and it was lovely to... Yeah. She was able to tell us about things that you do here, and she was able, I think, to learn a little bit from us. It was great.
Well, real pleasure. Those of you that are going to be at the track today, if you might have seen Gai yesterday in the winner's circle with the presentation for the test, a chance to say hello, and the next few days, the social scene over at the Fasig-Tipton Sales Grounds has the select sale tomorrow night and Tuesday night. She is as gracious as advertised, and a real pleasure to have you with us and in the United States.
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, we absolutely thank you for visiting, because following Australian racing, and I watch European and Asian and Australian racing pretty closely. It doesn't get bigger than Gai Waterhouse, so we're thrilled you stopped by today and are enjoying your stay up here in Saratoga.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to wrap things up.
I think we have to.
Because we're past the hour, but with Gai Waterhouse, it warrants.